This video will walk you through the steps involved in installing Windows Home Server 2011 onto VMware ESXi 5.0 virtualization platform. First thing we'll notice is we need to get an ISO file with this name into this ESX environment. If you're wondering where to get the ISO file, of course MSDN or TechNet are your sources. And if we look at the name of the file, again, that matches perfectly the file you see on my folder here locally. So to prepare for the video, I've downloaded the file in advance. Right, next, how do we get that file into ESX? Well, it's a little different than you might be used to. What you have to do is go to the Configuration tab of your ESX host. So we logged into this ESX vSphere client, typed in username and password, clicked on the ESX host. Now we click on Configure. Click on Storage tab, then find the array where I'm going to install it, right-click, and say Browse Data Store. Okay, now we have a traditional folder view here. I'm going to right-click and say New Folder, and make a file folder called ISO. Then we click Upload, point to this CD image, DVD image, 4.1 terabytes. Gives me a warning, say yes, and you'll see a rather slow upload process begins. So this is a good time to strongly consider getting Veeam, veeam.com/downloads, and download Fast SCP 3.0 for VMware. Click on Download, it'll ask you some questions, and you'll have the EXE. Once you have Fast SCP installed, it'll look like this. Here's the GUI. Right-click, Add Server. ESX is the name of my server. ESXi is what it's called there. That's the type of server. Type in the password that I chose during the ESXi install. Click Next, and click Finish. Notice on the left edge, ESX is right there. If we open it up, your little pinwheel spinning as it logs in for you. That simple. Now you see the 11 terabytes of storage where the ISO file is landing. Okay, but it's incredibly slow. So let's cancel out of that, and let's close that. Now we go back to Veeam, and go to Navigate to where it lives in my local file structure. Right-click, copy the file. Just show you the file name here. Weird, okay. And then paste it. It's going to offer to overwrite because it sees a file name with the same file, but a truncated one. 'So that file was already gone. I just hadn't clicked refreshed. It's a caching issue there. If the file was still there, it would say locked in and used because it was still downloading, or overwrite, that kind of thing. But because I had closed the data store browser, that file was already cleaned up. Actually, we can test that theory. Let's hit refresh now. You can see it's in progress. It's in flight. So it's working. So that speed is terrific. Okay, so Veeam is done. Third-party free tool, invaluable. Been using it for over 5-6 years at this point. All right, so now let's go back to creating a virtual machine. Click on Virtual Machine tab, we'll see an inventory. Let's do a new one. So if we right-click on the ESX host where we're going to install the new virtual machine, choose that with the left mouse button. We're going to do a custom install. Let's give it a simple name. WHS 2011. Hit Next. Let's put it on the 11 terabyte drive. Same place as the ISO file. Click Next. We'll leave that alone. And to detect the operating system, we'll leave that alone. We'll leave the sockets alone. We can change that without blue screening later. But again, generally, it's barely taxing to my Core i7 at all. So I'm just going to leave it as a single processor. So ESX doesn't have to bother juggling in among a bunch of hyper-threaded cores on my Core i7. 4 gig is fine. Okay, so we do want to go to a different network adapter that VMware Tools will give us later, but that comes later. If we do that now, we'll actually have a problem during the install. It's not worth the hassle. Leave that alone. Next. Create a new disk. Yep. Change the size to 160, which is the minimum, without resorting to some sort of tricks. Flat disk is the optimal speed. Thin will use a whole lot less space and only use up as much disk on the storage as you need. There's a little bit of a cost in growing the amount of space used, though, as it grows. So you could also install an SSD rather than like a RAID or something. Like a single SATA drive would be also a good spot to install this. Just click Next. Leave it alone. It's SCSI emulator. Okay, not really emulation, but it'll look like a SCSI device to Windows. We want to do Edit Virtual Machine Settings before completion. Why? Because we need to point to that ISO file we uploaded. So New, DVD, Data Store ISO file, browse to the 11 terabyte drive, ISO folder. There's the 4 gig file. And then make sure we turn this on. Very important step, connect at power on. Now we are done with configuring it. So at the bottom it says Create Virtual Machine, completed. So the virtual machine we just created is called simply WHS 2011. Let's right-click on it, say Open Console. That's how we look at what it's doing. And we'll now power it on. This will begin a normal install, which looks very much like installing on a physical machine that has one network interface and a supported network adapter. In other words, hardware-wise, it's just going to see everything it needs to and install. Resizing the window here a little for the purposes of this video. Okay. New installation. I understand I'll lose all data on this 160 gig partition. And now it runs. So let me just point out, we just kicked off the install, the actual install, right around 9 o'clock here. Let's bring up something else interesting, to me anyway. Performance. So if we look at summary view, we get some, performance view of this virtual machine. It says performance data not available yet. Why? Because this thing called Tools is not installed in Windows inside the guest. But if we go to this main view of the virtual machines now, we can see something good here. We can see the megahertz, we can see how much megabytes are in use, and we can see the amount of the 4 gig of RAM that's actually kind of in use here. So this is a virtual machine we're installing and keeping our eye on. And it's just expanding files at the moment. So this video is not intended to show the entire install process, only the pieces where you have questions to answer. So I'm going to pause and pick up when it's done and ready for me to do stuff. All right, it's only 4 or 5 minutes later, and it's asking my first question after a couple of reboots. So let's continue with the install. A couple things to point out here. I'm Eastern time zone. So we set the clock and daylight savings, I left it on. but I want to turn off Internet Time Automatic Setting. The reason is because VMware Tools that I'm installing later will keep this clock in sync with my ESX host. My ESXi host keeps its clock synchronized with NTP. So rather than all my virtual machines trying to set their clocks, I'll go ahead and do it myself. Notice, though, it has not set the clock. It's saying, oh no, it has. Never mind. That is the correct time. All right, so click on License. Agree to the EULA and read it, of course. Don't need to activate at the moment. Let's give it a simple name. I like to match the name of the virtual machine that I created, so my server is called WHS 2011, so there's no confusion. Upper and lower, numbers and letters, and a hint. All that's required before it'll let you continue. Oops. Had a little issue with the mouse there. Sorry about that. Let's get back on so you can see what's going on. All right, click Next. Turn off updates. I don't need them at the moment. And you're going to see some update configuration I'm going to do a little later. So this video is intended to show how to install Home Server 2011. The next video is going to show some basic steps to configure it. One is changing to a fixed IP on a faster, better network adapter, and the next is installing antivirus. So this video will finish with fixing up the network with the better VMware network adapter. And I'll save the next chapter for installing antivirus. While we wait here, here's the types of network adapters in VMware. So choosing an adapter. Once you install tools, you'll have this better. It'll show us 10G actually speed, but of course it's 1 gigabit underneath. Jumbo frame support, fault tolerance, and so forth. It's the best, latest adapter from VMware that we're going to configure in Windows here in a bit. All right. Now we intentionally want to let it just install and finish installing. Once we get to the desktop where we can do stuff, we're going to install VMware Tools, which will give us access to that adapter I just talked about. We'll shut down the operating system. We will reconfigure the virtual machine to change the type or like brand of network adapter that's shown to the virtual machine, and then power it back up again. So it's a fairly straightforward procedure, but it's important to do that very soon after installing this machine for the best chance at the best possible gigabit throughput on your network, particularly if you want things like jumbo frame support. And I believe TOW support is in there, TCP offload engine stuff. So if the underlying NIC supports it, I believe that's why it's presenting TOW capabilities, but I'm not sure. I haven't researched that fully. Okay. You'll see it's powering off again. I'll pause until something interesting is happening. Okay, I've resumed the video just a few seconds later because this is the final login here where we get to the desktop. And at this point, we'll be able to install VMware Tools. So in a few more seconds, it's going to have us click something, and then we'll be at our desktop, I believe. Looking at the CPU load here, what are we seeing? We're seeing 3.4 gigahertz on one CPU core, and it's using the memory. There it is. Your server's now ready to use. Okay, so let's click Close. All right. Now my mouse is still kind of held hostage just because VMware Tools are not installed, which will also get us better our network adapter. So let's take a look here. Before we do that, just to help you learn a little what it looks like. So if we go to the Device Manager, display adapters, generic VGA, mouse, same thing, generic, some unknown device. So all that's going to be cleaned up, storage adapter. More important is network adapter. Intel is what's shown and presented right now. So let's just close that, install VMware Tools. So now we go to the top menu here, click VM, Guest, Install Tools. And it's giving me a heads up on what it's about to do. Now I believe auto run is off, so there we go. Nope, auto run is on. All right, and get our mouse back in there and go ahead and install Tools. Now, if I ever wanted to migrate this to another product like VMware Workstation or VMware Player, which is actually free, version 4, comes with Workstation 8, if we do a full install of Tools, we'll have that capability without having to reinstall Tools. And some weird stuff happens when you uninstall and reinstall Tools, so I like to do complete. There's also some printer and multimedia features. Who knows, I might want some of that. It doesn't seem to bloat the memory footprint much or has minimal CPU overhead. So I'll do a complete, click Next, click Install. I'll leave the recording going because it's kind of informative to show all that goes on. You saw the driver just slipped in, VMX3. So I've not touched the mouse, I'm just letting it finish and do its thing. Okay, soon it's going to ask me if I want to reboot. So, it's done. I'm going to say no. Why? Because I want to do a shutdown, not a restart. All right, so now, let's move up here. I'm sorry. Let's just do a shutdown from within the OS here. Tools is installed but not really configured or working yet. Okay, so now it's shutting down. Excellent. Get this window sized where you can see everything again. All right, click on VM, Edit Settings, and now the network adapter. Notice you can't really change it. I'm at the factory default VM network. That's what it provided me when I installed the ESX. But the brand of adapter I can't mess with. It's this current adapter, E1000. So we just remove the one that's there and add a different Ethernet adapter, the one that we want. VMX-Net3, leave it on the same virtual machine network as the other one was on, and connect to power on. So basically that's how you swap adapters. It's killing that one and adding that one. Great. Let's look at the bottom, make sure it says it's done. Reconfigure virtual machine is done. It's basically instant. Now we're ready to power on this virtual machine. Okay, so now we know it took about 15 minutes to get to the first desktop and another 2 or 3 minutes to get tools installed. So we can move that clock out of the way. Next, I'm going to want to set it so that the clock is synchronized with ESX. You might remember I mentioned that when I turned off clock sync in Windows. Now let me point out, to get Control-Delete to work, you can do VM, guest, send Control-Delete if you forget, or you can click here and hit Control-Insert, and it issues Control-Delete to the underlying. Okay, so I'm logged back in. Had some password issues there, but I'm all set now. So we need to set it up. So the first thing I like to do is get tools showing. Just want to remind myself it's loaded and happy. So I click on that little doohickey and always show icons. And now VMware Tools is running and Scene is running. And now I turn on time synchronization. And that's it. So now my clock will be perfectly synchronized with my ESX host that's underlying it. Great. What's next? Well, we want to look at the brand of network adapter that's presented. Take a look. And there we go, VMXNet, and it started. Let's see the physical processor, LSI. Okay. Resolution. Let's set resolution. Speaking of the monitor here, let's set it so it fills up this 720p video and recording. All right. And the last step here will be the network. So I always hard code the IP on this. I don't want to rely on my DCP server, which is reliable. It's a router, but I don't want to rely on that. So I like to do this old technique of ipconfig all. Okay, so that's how my network adapter should be. I'm going to hard code it to .114. So let me take care of that now. Right click, open network and sharing. Local area connection 2. Why does it say that? Well, I had another brand one installed briefly. Let's go ahead and fix the name. I like to put the name of the adapter, followed by the actual IP that I'm hard coding, since this machine's going to live with that IP forever. Of course, you may pick something different. That way I know exactly what network I'm looking at, what network adapter, and what IP it's supposed to be. And now let's go ahead and hard code it 10.10. Whoops. Okay, so that's done. And it would have complained if I made a mistake or something serious. Now let's try. Okay, I'm online. This thing's working. So to wrap this up, it's installed, it's healthy, and if we look at the overview, that's a bit misleading. I was wrong about the memory. What we really want to look at is dive into the machine and see resource allocation, and you'll notice the memory is only using 655 of 4 gig. All right, so we've given it way more than it really needs for the workload, which is basically nothing right now. Let's just make sure we can log into the dashboard that this is a functional and happy machine. And yes, it is. So this machine's fine and ready to go. We really should make sure the network is happy and healthy by opening this and just double checking that home network was chosen. If it's on public or work, you'll have trouble. You won't be able to ping it. For example, let's go ahead and ping this host here. This is my local command line. Notice DHCP6 tends to take, IPv6 tends to take over, excuse me. And that's just the way it is. If you disable it, there's all sorts of controversy whether you should or not. I'm just going to leave it enabled. It works. We've got a single NIC. It finds it by name. We can ping this host by IP, of course, as well. It's all good. If it's responding to ping, that means, firewall and the network is set up. So this behaves a little different than 2008. If you're used to 2008 R2 setup where you have some work to do, you don't really need to do it through here. Most of it you can just do right through these tasks right here, or basically all of it. So I'll wrap things up by just mentioning that there's a way to grab a quick backup in seconds called snapshotting. And that's a good idea to do before the next video I'm about to record, which is about Windows updates and configuring it for Microsoft antivirus, as well as future possible videos about configuring remote users through a VPN solution for home server. So always a good idea to back up. So let's go ahead and close this. We're done with that. And let's show you the user interface for snapshots. Click here, snapshot, snapshot manager. Another easier way is right here in the toolbar, snapshot. Okay? But notice, snapshotting the virtual machine's memory, that would be an 8 gig file. Let's run Vim fast SCP and take a look under the hood here. Hit refresh. Okay, here's what it looks like. Here's the files. Here's the large file, 160 gig, as it told us. It made a big flat file and a bunch of little files. So if we do a large snapshot, we'll end up with essentially like a Hibernate file, a copy of RAM. Then there's also this Quiesce guest file system, which will take this moment in time of the file system, but when we pick up where we left off, memory is gone, so now we've got to reboot the machine. That makes me nervous on a server with services and dependencies and so forth. So here's the thing. Instead of using that, if you really want to test some tool or some add-in and you don't want to take the OS down or users, by all means use that snapshot. And the recommendation again would be go ahead and snapshot the virtual machine's memory and turn this on. So both options on, type in a description. That's what you need to do if you've got to leave the machine live, if you don't mind losing the disk space with these large snapshot files. And then you can roll back instantly. Without the OS rebooting, it'll just suddenly roll back in time. It's a magic trick. But I think more appropriate for a server is to do this. Just go ahead and shut it down. And now it can do a snapshot without anything fancy needed. Let's watch it do its thing there. So now we use the snapshot manager. Make sure it's finished. Actually, let's take a look at that. So here it should say I cleaned up the snapshots while I was rehearsing. Time has jumped here a bit. You'll see it's a couple hours later. I've appended my original video with this brief discussion of snapshots. But here's the thing. Did we finish powering off here? Yeah, machine's off. Okay. And the button says off. Okay. So now if we go to VM, snapshot, take a snapshot, we can say okay, so that's basically true. Notice these options are gray because it's now simple. You're doing a very quick snapshot. Watch how quick. Create virtual machine snapshot. It's done already before I even go over there. Why is it done? Because it's really just kind of a bookmark. So if we use Vim and hit refresh, you'll see very little changed. A tiny little file representing the moment in time, like a bookmark. So that's it. That's a good way and the right way, I would say, to snapshot. Now we can go ahead and power that virtual machine. Actually, I'd like to bring up the console first, which can be done here at this icon, and boot it up, and then watch it boot. And this is exactly where I'm going to pick up my next video. Thank you for watching.